Thrilled to be able to introduce you to this guy, Jason Feifer. His brand new book, Build for Tomorrow. It's a great read. Check it out. You'll enjoy it. On this episode of The Modern Author, we get to hear from the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. And what's fun about this conversation is we really heard about his process of really architecting not only the book, but the book launch. And there's three big things that I want you to take from this conversation. Number one is it's not about information. There's tons of information out there. It's about distilling it and combining it in a way to sort of teach people and think about people. So number one, understand that it's not necessarily about the information per se. It's about how you're able to package, combine, and really make it easy for your reader to learn through it. Number two, remember that that's who it's for. It's for the person who's reading it. So how do you really know your audience? How do you understand and really think about what problem is this going to solve for them? If you think about Jason's, really the key thing I remember is an action plan for embracing change, adapting fast, and future-proofing your career. That's the type of reader that he wants. And then lastly, I think especially as we think about writing a book, and this is something that I'm such a big believer in, is a book is just a tool. So you want to figure out what is the ultimate goal of this book. Yeah, you want people to read it, but for most authors, that's not where they make their money. They make their money going out there or speaking or writing or teaching or building their business behind it. So be intentional. If you want to use this book to do more speaking, then during the process, connect with people that can help you on that one. If you want to use this to do more workshops, then develop more workshops that you can sell in connection with the book behind it. The biggest thing to know, as Jason puts out there, is you don't sort of just launch a book. You have to architect the launch of the book. And that's really what I think he's done so exceptionally well. If you enjoy conversations with modern authors just like Jason, please make sure you subscribe. That way you can get updated when we share these updates weekly of awesome authors and creators to help you learn on your creative journey. Remember, never write alone. Use each other as a resource and have fun with this amazing conversation with Jason.
There was a large amount of time in which storage of knowledge in our heads was important because it was literally the only way to carry that stuff around. And that's not true anymore. So now there's information at your fingertips. Mm-hmm. And I would say that storing information in your head is no longer as valuable as being able to find and distill information and being able to create patterns in that information and how to make sense of information quickly. That to me is now, I think, a more modern sign of intelligence. In front of you at any moment, there are two sets of opportunities. Opportunity set A, opportunity set B. Opportunity set A is the stuff that's being asked of you, what is required of you at your job, what are you being measured by. Opportunity set B are all the things that are available to you that nobody's asking you to do. Opportunity set B is more important. That opportunity set B is where you grow, where you become more and more qualified to do things that you may not even anticipate. Everything that I'm doing is change, like understanding change. Figuring out that, embracing change, figuring out the patterns of change, why people resist change. A question that I keep asking myself is, how do I occupy that space as much as possible myself? My very first job, I was a community newspaper reporter at a 6,000 circulation daily newspaper called Harvard News, where nothing was happening. And I was sitting there every day and I was like, I got to do something bigger. I quit that job soon thereafter, and I sat in my bedroom for 9 months and I freelanced. And I just realized nobody's ever coming to me. I figured out how to do public speaking because I'm good on microphone, because I know how to make podcasts. Nobody asked me to make or do any of that. So there's this phrase that you can find all over the place, which is Google makes you. The argument is that all of this information at our fingertips makes us intellectually lazy. We don't have to absorb this information, and therefore we're stupid. What is important and what we would consider a sign of intelligence changes by generation based on the tools available to us and the things that are required of us. There was a large amount of time in which storage of knowledge in our heads was important because it was literally the only way to carry that stuff around. And that's not true anymore. So now there's information at your fingertips. And storing information in your head is no longer as valuable as being able to find and
Mhm.
distill information and being able to create patterns in that information and how to make sense of information quickly. That to me is now, I think, a more modern sign of intelligence.
We got a bunch of authors here, and they're like trying to help make their story. How do you wind up sort of filtering that noise for what's actually interesting and relevant to other people?
Well, it starts with understanding the audience. Everything comes down to understanding the audience. And I would push you, and I just went through a process like this with Pessimist Archive, which I can talk about, to really deeply understand your audience, what they need from you, what they think you represent, and how you serve and deliver value to them. Then the decisions that you make start to guide themselves in a way. You should have a healthy but correct balance of predictability and surprise. So what I mean by that is when people come to Entrepreneur Magazine, they're coming because of some level of predictability.
Right.
They have a specific thing that they want in their lives, and they think that this magazine fulfills it, or my podcast fulfills it. And then the surprise is that you need to deliver it in new ways so that they're constantly saying, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I came here for this thing, and now I got it, and I didn't know what I was looking for, and I have it. I didn't fully understand my audience at Pessimist Archive. I hired a consultancy, and in the past year, they did a deep dive on the audience. They found that the number one reason that people are coming to the show is actually because they are concerned about the future, and they like that the show makes them feel more resilient for the future. It's actually a kind of form of self-help, even though the show doesn't sound like that at all. So now that I know that, I can shift the types of stories that I pick. I reframed the entire book, including the title, because I had that insight. And now I know how this information that I'm finding is fitting into people's lives, and that is critical to know. Mr. Nice Guy is a romantic comedy. It came out in 2018. It's about two people who, this is unlike anything else that we've talked about so far. It's about two people who each week sleep together and then critically review each other's performance in a magazine. So it's like a romantic comedy. These two people, they come together. Their relationship has very large ups and downs. It's a lot of fun. The idea that we were going for was to kind of explore what would happen if you stuck to brutal honesty on something that nobody's ever really honest about, which is partner's performance. We started working on that book years before I was at Entrepreneur, and therefore years before I had framed myself in this way to the public. When I started working on the book, I thought of myself as a guy who makes funny things. I'd made a number of like viral weirdo things. My media network of editors and journalists who I've known for most of my career, when I told them about the book, they said, "Great, congratulations." And when I told entrepreneurs about the book, they said, "Oh, that's great. And what is it for?" To the journalist, the putting out of the book is the end goal by itself. But to the entrepreneur, a book represents part of a larger structure. Right? A book is about getting speaking gigs. A book is about clients. A book is about personal branding and public presentation. It's a totally different thing. Right. And I have to say, I have, in the last couple of years, as I've been an entrepreneur and thought more deeply about myself as a personal brand, I've shifted towards that second way of thinking, where everything that I do, I feel like should be building towards a cohesive whole, and that I'm kind of wasting my time a little bit. The like dirty secret about book blurbs is that they're almost all entirely just people that the author knows. It was the Kevin Kwan quote. The
Crazy
author,
Rich Asians.
we sent him a galley copy of the book days before the book got printed. Days before. Out of nowhere, I get an email from Kevin Kwan saying, "Hey, I read the book, really liked it." We asked our editor, "Do we have time to get this quote on the cover?" I just took part of Kevin Kwan's email and I just sort of shaped it a little bit into a blurb quote, and I sent it back to him and I said, "Kevin, I'm sure you're extremely busy. Just writing us is immensely generous of you. But if I can ask one more thing, can I take this part of your email and put it on the book?" And he said, "Sure." And so, we did that with Mr. Nice Guy. Basically the second that we sold it, we had about a year before it was going to come out. And we spent a lot of that time reaching out to people in women's media where we weren't really that well connected, and asking if we could take people out to lunch or come in for just to chat. And the way we didn't have a book to give them, we played as a strength, which I think it was.
Yeah.
We could say, look, we don't even have a book to give you. What I'd really love is just your insights on this audience and this market. I was going to pitch them later, but
Exactly.
So we did that, and that went pretty well and did lead to some coverage. If I speak at an event and the organizers are happy, anything, it goes into a spreadsheet. It goes into a spreadsheet that I call good contacts, literally right there on my desktop, good contacts. And that thing is full. It's by tab. It's like founder, investor, media. It's just everybody note any relevant information so that, 4 years later, I can look at it and I can remember. And you better believe I have not asked a single thing of people. Because this is my ask.
Yep.
This is it. This is the ask. I'm doing so many things for people, and I'm logging it all, and I'm never, ever asking for a thing because I'm going to ask them for this. And this one thing is going to be tell their audience about the book, or if you're running a company, would you buy 200 copies of the book, and I'll give a talk at the company, whatever it is. I started telling myself this thing, which was I can't wait for the second time. I remember telling myself that the very first time I stepped onto a stage to give a keynote, where I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I can't wait for the second time, because the first time is going to suck. Like the first time I'm not going to know what I'm doing. I'm going to feel like I didn't do all that. There's a large gap at the beginning of anything you do between your tastes and your ability. As long as you have this thing in you that says, it's like okay to have not done that well at this. Right. But also, I know, because I've done it enough times, that I can get better at this, right? Then you just go and you do it. It becomes kind of a game. The number of times that I've put myself on television to talk about something that I don't really know. And I look back on those early TV appearances and just cringe. They were terrible. But I wouldn't know how to do it if I didn't do those first.